Mr. Mike Nussbaum.
Thank you, Jürgen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Nussbaum. I'm from Canada, and it gives me great pleasure and a tremendous honor to be welcoming you to this summit on behalf of the IHE International Board. Jürgen, are you going to flip the slides for me? Thank you. Many of you know me, and I know many of you from many years of IHE activity, and also work in the standards community and ISO and elsewhere. But for those that don't know me, I live on the west coast of Canada in a place called Victoria, British Columbia. I've been on the board for some time, and I'm there in a role now as president of IHE Canada, which I've been for the last 2 years. I've had quite a bit of experience in IHE. In the past, I was a co-chair of the IT Infrastructure Planning Committee along with Charles Barizo for a number of years. And more recently, I have worked with Jürgen on a number of initiatives within the IHE International Board that has led to the formation of something called the Global Deployment Coordination Committee, or the GDC, which is really what led to this summit. And I'll talk a little bit about that. For my day job, I'm a consultant, like many of you here. I've been consulting since the early 1980s in healthcare IT in my entire career. My background is in health administration and IT. And I'm currently working on a number of projects, one of which of interest is with the US, IHE USA's new and emerging certification program. Next slide. So the very first thing I would like to do is thank our hosts and our sponsors. They're all listed here. I'd like to go through them. First of all, IHE Europe has done a tremendous effort to put this summit together in conjunction with the Connect-a-thon. And all of the folks on the IHE Europe board of directors and all the folks that have worked on this event over the last couple of months have done an absolutely tremendous job. So they're, again, a very prominent sponsor. The Radiological Society of North America and HIMSS are the two sponsors of IHE International Board. We have representation from RSNA, Chris Carr, who you heard from last night, and HIMSS is represented by Selena Roth in the back. And again, wonderful to have our support from our sponsoring organizations for the International Board. You're all very familiar with Martin Tiani, and Tiani's spirit has played a tremendous amount in bringing this summit together. And we have two organizations, actually 3 organizations, that are offering services as part of one of the tracks. And one is the University of Applied Sciences of Vienna, and the other is Mohawk College from Canada, and the third is IHE Services, of course, and some of the folks there that have lots of expertise in putting together Connect-a-thons. I would also like to thank our hosts, IHE Turkey, and now I would really like to thank someone who should have been thanked last night more, and I'm going to thank him now publicly, Jürgen Brandstatter, who has worked tirelessly over the past few months to put this together. So please join me in a round of applause for Jürgen and all of for those, I assume everybody here is familiar with IHE. Is anybody here new to IHE? Okay, I'm not going to cover what all of IHE is. You can go to IHE.net and learn everything. But I did want to just highlight a couple of things. First of all, IHE is an organization that is both global and local. Globally, all of the development of the technical frameworks are done by these international domain committees. As I mentioned, I used to co-chair the IT Infrastructure Domain Committee, and we had representatives from all around the world on that committee, as are all of the committees. So there are 13 domain committees currently and growing. We get new domain committees coming forward all the time. Locally, our national and regional deployment committees. And this is our focus for the summit, is on the deployment side. We all know about the technical frameworks. We're not going to discuss the technical frameworks here. We're going to talk about how to make the technical frameworks work in our countries and in our regions. And we have a framework for countries and regions, and the best example of regions is IHE Europe, which I'm so impressed to learn more about IHE Europe and how that has become such a strong organization here and helps solidify the work that is going on in many of the countries in the European region. We need to do more of that in other areas of the world, and we will. We have, and this is a list of the deployment committees in various stages of activity, but I wanted to capture all of them. There are 13 domain committees and 25 deployment committees. They're all listed here. I hope I haven't forgotten any, and if I have, that's okay. It's a bit of an evolving framework here. But of the 25 domain committees, 21, or deployment committees, excuse me, 21 are here. So there are 75 people at the summit representing 21 of the 25 deployment committees. That is very, very impressive. And I thank you all for traveling all this distance to come and share your experiences and learn from one another. So, for those of you who are involved with the deployment committees are charged with certain responsibilities under IHE, and this comes from the governance documents from IHE International. Responsible for promoting the appropriate use of the technical framework and the specifications in your respective countries and regions. Represent the needs and the requirements of your countries so that IHE turns out better products. Interacting with your government agencies and your other stakeholders in your country and regions to make sure that IHE can actually do good work in your countries and regions. And build liaison responsibilities and learn from one another, which is what we're trying to work on here. So one of the things since I joined the board that I've been very involved in is strategic planning. And we are very fortunate about a year ago to hold our very first strategic planning retreat of the board of IHE International in July. And we had it was a facilitated strategic planning session. We had a professional facilitator, and that person helped us drive out a number of goals and strategies for IHE International. And I just want, and this document, by the way, is published on IHE.net if you want to see all of it. But I wanted to highlight goal number 1, the most important goal. Ensure that IHE profiles, processes, tools, and services are adopted and used effectively throughout the world. That is our responsibility here. That's what deployment committees are charged with doing. And we saw that as a the most important activity of the board going forward from this point in time. We've done a wonderful job of building up a great technical library of specifications. Now it's time to put those specifications to work. So our strategies associated with that goal are listed here, and I wanted to highlight a few things. Effective participation and collaboration is the primary one. We weren't doing very much of that, maybe in Europe, but not the whole world. So this is the very first opportunity to bring everyone together to learn from one another and collaborate. And again, learn from one another. This is words that come out of the strategic planning document. This is what the board is focusing its activities on going forward. So in order to action the strategies, we formed a work group, and Jürgen and I were essentially co-chairing that work group together. Jürgen doing a lot of the work to help get those strategies into action. And we were charged with engaging stakeholders through an establishment of something new, some kind of deployment coordination committee. On the domain side, we've had a domain coordination committee for about 5 years now, and I helped pull that together while I was one of the co-chairs. And that's been very effective in bringing all the domains together to help understand what each one was doing, to help support one another. And we recognized that we needed to do exactly the same thing with the deployment committee, some kind of coordination function. And we wanted to convene some kind of group at least twice annually to share our best practices. Now we have some specific and challenging differences with how we might coordinate as deployment committees, different from how we might coordinate as domain committees. And I'll get to that in a moment. I'm going to skip a whole lot of debate and discussion. Our working group, which had a number of representatives from this room on, and Jürgen and I helped facilitate this with Chris Carr's able assistance, came up with a model, and it's a three-tiered model. The three tiers are listed by different colors. The first is the national deployment committees. We're all familiar with them. We all belong to one of them. And those have been in place for a long time. And I haven't listed them all here, but just as some examples. We also wanted to accept the notion of regional committees that brought together these various national committees. And we wanted to recognize that we had some specific challenges to get people together, both physically and even on the phone, because of time zones. So we came up with this notion of a continental mirror committee, which would be somehow embracing a number of national committees. And in Europe, that's already in existence with IHE Europe. In North America, where I'm from, we have IHE in Canada and the US, and hopefully in Central and South America emerging. And we're all in the same time zones there. So we wanted to build up something called IHE Americas. In Asia and other parts of the world, there has been some attempts to bring groups together in regional structures. As we bring on new deployment committees in continents like Africa, we may want to have a special group for Africa. So we have the ability to create these committees that are most practical. And right now, IHE Europe is the only one that exists, but we want to work hard to start building this infrastructure. We've also recognized that to bring everybody together as a committee is very difficult. We're across 24 time zones in the world, and it's very difficult to get everybody together. We did have this notion of the Global Deployment Coordination Committee, or the GDC, that we created, which is a structure which has representation from these continental mirror committees. But bringing people together is the challenge. So we came up with this notion of a World Summit. And the World Summit is the way we bring this Global Deployment Coordination Committee to some kind of physical event. And this is the very first one. So we're very, very pleased with the turnout. I think we're very, very happy with how many people saw value in this. There are people here, again, across 21 countries, but from all around the world. And it's a tremendous effort that everybody went to attend. So the World Summit came out of this notion of the GDC. The GDC has been struck, but we're just at the very beginning stages. So we're now doing some work to get our constitution, our rules of operation together. But this meeting is really done under the auspices of the GDC, which is part of the International Board. So that's how we got to the World Summit. And I wanted to make sure everybody sort of got that sequence of events. So the primary objectives of the World Summit are not to sit around the table and make hard decisions. That's a very difficult thing to do for deployment committees that come from all around the world, all from different national infrastructures, all with different policies, economic policies, political policies, healthcare policies. And it's very difficult to sit around in a working group meeting and come up with some very definitive action items. However, we decided that we first needed to get to know each other better, to exchange information as to what we're doing in our national and regional committees, and brainstorm on what are the things that we can do together. We recognize in our working group, and I think you recognize, that that we are going to have differences. I know in Canada we have differences from Turkey. I know that. We have a different political system, we have a different healthcare system, and our deployment committee is going to be different from IHE Turkey deployment committee. We know that. We also know that there may be some things that we can learn from IHE Turkey and apply them to IHE Canada. Or there may be some common things that we can do together because nobody's doing this, and maybe we can help support one another. So this is the idea of the World Summit. We're here really to help each other, to learn about each other, to meet each other, and build relationships that we can take back home with us, and we can help one another grow what we're trying to do. Now, there's a few hot topics that have been discussed at the International Board. I know they've been discussed in Europe and Asia and other jurisdictions. And I sort of wanted to suggest a few of them that might come up in some of the panel discussions that we're going to go through today and tomorrow. So I just wanted to do that to just sort of get you thinking about some things. So the very first one is this whole issue about how we align our IHE deployment committees with our national or regional infrastructure. our governments, our national health systems, our regional health systems, and the challenges of doing that. And last night we had some great discussions at our table, and I'm sure all of you participated. Some of the challenges that you've had in getting that very connected alignment with your national infrastructures. Some countries have done a really good job of doing that. Other countries are struggling. And so what can we do to help support all deployment committees to figure out how best to do this? And I gave some examples on the right-hand side. The right-hand side is Canada's example, and we have something called Canada Health Infoway. I'm going to come back to that to illustrate how we've solved that issue. The next one is something I know we've all been hearing about, and it's certification of vendor products to IHE integration profiles. This is something that IHE USA has decided to try out. And I'm helping with that project, and there's some folks in the room from the US that can help talk about that more. But we've been talking about certification in IHE for a long time. And so now we have an opportunity to learn from one another, to understand some of the issues, to understand how a program might be organized, so that we can figure out how we might want to do that in our own countries or our own regions. There's a lot of debate about how to do that. We have committee meetings that are discussing that. I think you're going to get a lot on this topic that's going to show up in a few of the different panels. So think about that. Education and professional credentialing. We have a tremendous program here at the Summit on education for IHE. We have 3 organizations that are providing education services from different parts of the world coming together to demonstrate how IHE education can be delivered. And we have a track, and hopefully lots of you will be participating in that, that you'll learn something about IHE, something technical about IHE, and how to actually get from an idea to testing your products at a Connect-a-thon, and what you need to know about that at the user side as well. So that's the education side. And then we get into this quality discussion about, well, you know, we have some quality monitoring going on down here, down at the Connect-a-thon. We'll see that later today. But how do we manage that quality? How do we maintain that quality? And can we do something to credential? You understand what I mean by credential? Can we certify people to be Connect-a-thon monitors in some way? Can we provide education? They've tried some of this in the US. I know that RSNA has run some programs to educate people how to be monitors, good monitors. Not all monitors go through that program, but it's been very successful in providing some high-quality monitors for the Chicago Connect-a-thons every year. What can we do to help promote that more? Again, something to think about. And the last, again, is project-a-thons. We have project-a-thons going on right now with the EPSOS project here. And again, it's taking the IHE infrastructure and orchestrating that infrastructure to satisfy a national or a regional initiative. And EPSOS is a very good example of that. And what can we do to help promote project-a-thons in other parts of the world to help support our national and regional initiatives? Again, I just wanted to, this isn't very clear, but this whole national regional alignment is a very important question. I just wanted to cover a little bit about it. There's different models of aligning IHE with our national and regional infrastructures that go from distributed to fully integrated. And that's a continuum. And where each of you might fall on that curve may be a different place. But it's very good to understand what that curve looks like so that at least you can understand where you are and where you would like to go to. I have an example from Canada on the next slide, Jürgen, if you could, where we have, again, I'm going to come back to Canada Health Infoway. In Canada, just as an example, we've created something called the Standards Collaborative, which brings IHE Canada together with HL7 Canada, our delegation that goes to ISO TC215, our delegation and distribution arm for IHT SDO for the SNOMED CT standards, and others, DICOM is in there as well, into one forum. And every member of the Standards Collaborative is a member of HL7 Canada, is a member of IHE Canada, etc. We charge people to be a member of the Standards Collaborative. It is supported by Canada Health Infoway, which is an arm of government. And we, this organization, create the national agenda for Canada for healthcare IT standards. I think we've done a really good job in Canada of bringing these together. I know many of you have been watching the Canadian system over the years, and we have I can tell you honestly that IHE has a very, very strong seat at the national table. And I think that's what we're all trying to achieve in some way in our deployment committees. We see value in IHE or we wouldn't be here. And what we'd like to do is we'd like our countries to see that same value. So that's all I'm going to say as part of my welcome speech. I know we're a little late and I'm trying to make up some time. We have a tremendous program here, both panel discussions, which are organized around all of the deployment committees together to discuss certain topics. We have topics on the essentials of IHE, implementing IHE, marketing IHE, how can we effectively deploy IHE, strategies in hospitals, and benefits of collaboration. These are structured opportunities for all of you to discuss your needs, your successes, and your challenges. And so we have panelists that will present. We encourage audience participation. On the developer track, we have a number of topics that are going to take the idea of how do I get IHE into my product all the way through to testing and using tools and publishing the results and hopefully selling your product with IHE built in. And that's both for the seller and for the buyer. And we have some tremendous experts that will help lead you through that process. We're also going to, it's just one back. We have a visit to the Connect-a-thon floor later today. And I would encourage anybody who has not actually seen a Connect-a-thon to go down. There's something very powerful about watching vendors that normally compete ferociously in the marketplace collaborate with one another. This is something that IHE has that nobody else has, that I'm aware of. It's a safe, vendor-neutral environment for vendors to work together on the topic of interoperability. Vendors collaborate on interoperability and they compete on everything else. And the buyers, the hospitals, the health organizations, see that as a high benefit and one of IHE's most important benefits. So to see this in the Connect-a-thon, watch vendors that normally would fight each other for the same contract, sitting side by side and helping one another. And this goes on in Europe, this goes on in Asia, this goes on in North America. It's a tremendous thing that IHE has introduced in this area. So please take some time and go and understand what the Connect-a-thon is all about. And the visual is amazing. There's 300 people there that are all working together. We also have a very strong social program, and again, thanks to Jürgen and the great folks in IHE Turkey have basically put together a really good social program. Istanbul is a wonderful city. There's so much to see, and I hope all of you end up on the Bosphorus cruise this evening and the tour tomorrow. So the last slide then, I just want to leave you with one thing. I want to welcome you on behalf of the board. The board is very, very supportive of what we're doing here and wants to encourage this kind of collaboration. We're going to try and do this somewhere every year. We want you to enjoy yourself because we're all here in a very social environment, and that's done intentionally. We think that's a good learning environment for where we are right now. And I wanted to leave you with the message that the value you get is directly related to what you put into it. So ask questions, contribute to the panel discussions. In the developer track, make sure you understand everything that you need to do to go away and actually build profiles into your systems. Participate and you'll get lots of value, and hopefully everybody will leave here with something much more than what they came with, which is a better understanding and communication amongst one another. And with that, I would say enjoy the program. Thanks again to Jürgen and the team, and we'll see you at the next session.